Hey, welcome back. So in our last explainer, you actually wrote your very first Python program. Pretty cool, right? Today, we're going to build on that. We're diving into the absolute foundation of how all code works, variables and data types. By the time we're done here, you'll get exactly how Python handles things like text, numbers, and logic. And trust me, these are the essential building blocks for pretty much any program you can dream up.
All right, let's kick things off with a really basic question. Think about it. When you ask a user for their name, or your program calculates a price, how does it actually remember that information? Where does it go? The answer to this is what makes our programs truly useful.
So, here's what's on the menu today. First, we'll talk about your code's memory. Then we'll get into numbers, integers, and floats. After that, strings for working with text, and Booleans for making decisions. We'll touch on how to manage all this data, and then finish up with a recap and a little practice challenge for you.
All right, let's jump right in. First up, variables, which are basically your code's memory. The easiest way to think about a variable is just a labeled box. Seriously, that's it. You give the box a name, you stick some information inside it, and Python remembers what's in there. They're like these little memory tags you can use over and over again in your code. And here you can see them in action. Look how simple this is. That single equals sign you see? That's not equals like in math, it's the assignment operator. It means put this thing on the right into the container on the left. So we're telling Python, put the text Gina into a box called name. Put the whole number 45 into a box called age. And put the decimal number 3.99 into a box called price.
Now, you can't just name these containers anything you want. There are a few rules, but they're pretty straightforward. You can use letters, numbers, and underscores, but you can never, ever start a variable name with a number. Also, no spaces. That's a big one. If you have two words, you connect them with an underscore, just like first underscore name. And finally, remember that Python is case sensitive. That means name with a capital N and name with a lowercase n are two totally different variables.
And this might be the most important rule of all. Use descriptive names. I mean, look at this. Both of these lines of code do the exact same thing technically, but user age equals 30, it tells you a story. You know exactly what that 30 represents. X equals 30, that tells you absolutely nothing. It's just a mystery. Trust me on this. Your future self and anyone else who reads your code will thank you for being clear.
Okay, so we know how to make the boxes. Now let's talk about the different kinds of stuff we can put inside them. We'll start with numbers. In Python, there are two main flavors of numbers you'll deal with: integers and floats.
And the difference is really simple. An integer, or int for short, is just a whole number. No fractions, no decimals. Think 30. A float, on the other hand, is a number that has a decimal point, like 5.8. So your age is probably an integer, but the price of a latte, that's going to be a float.
And naturally, you can do math with these numbers. You can add, subtract, multiply, whatever. But check this out. This is kind of cool. Look at that last line. When you divide two integers, like 3 divided by 2, Python is smart. It knows the answer isn't a whole number, so it automatically converts the result to a float for you, giving you 1.5. Pretty handy, right? Okay, moving on from numbers to text. In the world of programming, we don't just call it text, we call it a string. And you are going to be working with strings all the time. Making a string is super easy. All you do is wrap your text in quotes. You can use either single quotes or double quotes. Python doesn't care which one you pick. The only rule is that you have to be consistent. If you start with a single quote, you have to end with a single quote. It's that simple. Now you could join strings together using a plus sign, like you see on the left. And it works, but it can get really messy fast. The much better way, the professional way, is to use what's called an F string. All you do is put a little F right before the opening quote. This tells Python, hey, pay attention. Then you can pop your variables right inside the string using these curly braces. It is so much cleaner and easier to read. This is the way to do it.
All right, our last of the 4 core data types, and this one is tiny, but it is unbelievably powerful. I'm talking about Booleans. These are the absolute bedrock of logic and decision-making in every program.
So what is a Boolean? It's the simplest thing in the world. It can only be one of two things, true or false. That's it. And super important, notice the capital T and the capital F. You have to capitalize them. You use Booleans to represent things that are black and white, yes or no, on or off.
But here's where it gets interesting. You don't always have to type out true or false yourself. Look at this. We start with a fact. Age is 20.
Then we ask Python a question. We ask, hey Python, is the value inside age greater than or equal to 18? Python looks at it, does the comparison, and the answer to that question is yes, that is true. So the value true is what gets stored in our is_adult variable. This right here is the beginning of how your code starts to think.
So there you have it, our 4 core data types. But in the real world, data isn't always so neat and tidy. You're often going to need to figure out what type of data you have, and sometimes you'll even need to change it from one type into another.
Thankfully, Python gives us a super useful little tool for this. It's a function called type. You can stick any variable or any piece of data inside those parentheses, and Python will tell you exactly what it is. As you can see, it correctly identifies Gina as a string, 45 as an integer, 3.99 as a float, and true as a Boolean.
So, you might be asking, why does this even matter? Well, this right here is probably one of the biggest gotchas for new Python programmers. You have to burn this into your brain. The input function always gives you a string. Always. So even if the user types in the number 25, what your program gets is the text characters 2 and 5. It's not a number. So when you try to add 1 to it, Python just freaks out and says, whoa, I can't do math with text, and your program will crash. And here's the fix. It's called type conversion, or sometimes casting. It's super simple. We take the string that we got from the user, and we wrap it in the int function. This tells Python, hey, take this string and do your best to turn it into an integer. Now the age variable holds the actual number 25, and when we add 1 to it, everything works just like we expect.
Whew, we have covered a ton of ground, haven't we? We've gone from what a variable even is, through the 4 essential data types, and how to manage them. Let's do a quick recap to lock it all in. Okay, let's boil it all down. First, variables are just labeled containers for storing info. The 4 main types of info we've seen are ints, floats, strings, and Booleans. Super important, always use descriptive names for your variables. When you're working with text, F-strings are the modern professional way to go. And remember, you've got tools to help you out. You can check a type with the type function, and you can convert between them with functions like int, float, and string.
All right, your turn. Time for a little practice. I want you to write a quick program that does exactly what you see here. It's going to make you use pretty much everything we just learned. You'll have to get input, store it in variables, convert the age from a string to an integer, and then use a nice f-string to print the result. Go ahead and pause the explainer right now and give it a shot.
Awesome job! You really do now understand the absolute foundation of how Python stores and manages data. This isn't just some small topic. It's the bedrock that literally everything else in programming is built on. So, in our next explainer, we're going to take these variables, especially those Booleans, and use them to build conditional logic. That's when our programs will finally start making their own decisions. It's going to be fun. I'll see you there.